Hey everyone. Tonight we don't begin with cherry blossoms or victory parades. We begin in Ashes, Tokyo, 1946. The empire has fallen, its cities burned to bone and dust. And the men who once shouted Banzai now hide their faces in shame. In their pockets, they carry not medals, but small white pills. They called it Philopon, the spirit drug of the emperor's army. Once, it kept soldiers awake through the jungles of Burma, charging without food, without fear. Now, it keeps a broken veteran alive just long enough to remember every face he left behind. This isn't the story of samurai or honor. It's the story of one man, lost between duty and addiction, clinging to the last illusion of Bushido through the haze of Shabu. So steady yourself and follow us into the ruins of post-war Tokyo where honor died. But the drug refused to surrender. He stands amidst the skeletal remains of what was once a vibrant city. Tokyo, 1946. The air itself feels heavy, thick with the perpetual scent of smoke and a subtle, acrid tang of decay that seems to cling to his very clothes, to his skin. Every gust of wind stirs not just dust, but fine particles of ash, the pulverized memories of homes and lives, carrying them in a mournful dance across the shattered landscape. It's a city of ghosts, he realizes. Not just those of the departed, but the ghosts of ambition, of empire, of a future that evaporated in firestorms. His boots crunch softly on what was once solid ground, now a shifting carpet of rubble, broken pottery, and the occasional warped piece of metal that glints dully under the muted sky. He walks, not with a soldier's stride, but with a hesitant, almost fragile gait. His shoulders hunched, his gaze lowered, as if trying to shrink from the immense, crushing weight of all that has been lost. The silence here is profound, broken only by the distant, tinny sound of a hammer striking metal, a stark reminder that some still cling to the desperate, quiet hope of rebuilding. But for him, there is only the vast, echoing void where his home once stood, a place where laughter once resided. He finds it, or rather, he finds the empty, burned-out foundation, a stark rectangular scar in the earth, indistinguishable from 1,000 others, yet unmistakably his. The walls are gone, the roof collapsed, every single piece of wood, every fabric, every memory reduced to the same uniform, carbonized dust. He sifts through the cold, gray, powdery debris with fingers that feel strangely detached, numb. And then, there it is, a small, warped piece of paper, stubbornly refusing to fully surrender to the flames. It's a photograph, or what's left of it, charred at the edges, the image almost completely obscured. Yet a familiar outline emerges from the smoke-stained surface. The gentle curve of a face, the faint impression of kind eyes. It's his mother. Her smile, once so bright and full of life, is now a ghostly whisper, forever trapped in this brittle, fragile fragment. He holds it, not in his palm, but between his thumb and forefinger, as if it might crumble to nothing if he applies too much pressure. A raw ache spreads through his chest, a dull, insistent throb. He wants to cry. He feels the tears welling, a hot, liquid betrayal. Just then, a small voice, sharp and clear amidst the desolation, pierces the quiet. He looks up, and there, a small child, perhaps no older than 5 or 6, stands pointing a tiny, trembling finger directly at him. Their eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and a chilling, almost primal accusation, bore into his Oni. The child whispers, the single word hanging in the air like a poisoned dart. Monster. The shame that washes over him is a cold, suffocating wave, far more potent than any physical blow. He is not a hero here. He is a specter of the past, a symbol of ruin. His hand instinctively slips into the pocket of his tattered uniform, finding the familiar, comforting coolness of the small, white pills. Fill upon. He remembers the dense, humid air of Burma, the unending days of marching, the constant threat of unseen enemies, the gnawing hunger in his stomach, the exhaustion that clawed at his very soul. Back then, these pills were a lifeline, a surge of false courage that allowed him to push through the fear, to fight without sleep, without question. Now, in this desolate landscape, they serve a different, more insidious purpose. They are a fragile dam against the flood of despair, a temporary anesthetic for a heart that threatens to shatter. He grips them, a silent promise, a brief respite. If honor died with the empire, he wonders, the thought a slow, deliberate echo in his mind. Then what is he still living for? The question hangs unanswered, a heavy shroud upon the ashes. The scent of Tokyo's ashes begins to recede, replaced by a suffocating, almost tangible humidity. The heavy, sweet, sick smell of decay and damp earth that clings to the air like a shroud. He finds himself drifting back, a sudden, jarring shift in memory, to the scorching heat of a prison camp in the Philippines. The sun beat down relentlessly, a merciless white-hot orb in a sky that seemed perpetually bleached of color, sucking the moisture from everything, leaving skin cracked and lips parched. Here, the passage of time was marked not by clocks, but by the slow, agonizing drag of days, punctuated by the quick, brutal certainty of night. The days blurred into a monotonous cycle of hunger and thirst, each breath a struggle against the pervasive stench that hung over the camp. It was a smell he could never quite scrub from his clothes, from his skin, from his very memory. The cloying odor of unwashed bodies, human waste, and the metallic, unmistakable scent of fear. But it was at night, when the heat offered no real relief and the oppressive darkness settled, that the true horror unfolded. Men died nightly. Their fading breaths were barely whispers, lost amidst the drone of insects and the distant, rhythmic chirping of geckos. He would lie on the hard, packed earth, his body aching, his mind a swirling vortex of exhaustion and terror, listening to the soft, ragged gasps that inevitably gave way to a chilling silence. Then would come the sounds he dreaded most, the shuffling footsteps of the camp guards, the curt, guttural commands, and the sickening thud as bodies, stripped of any remaining dignity, were dragged away like sacks of grain across the rough ground. Their final journey was always short, always swift. He would close his eyes, trying to conjure the image of cherry blossoms or the sound of his mother's voice, anything to block out the reality. But the sounds would pierce through, leaving their indelible mark. Sleep, when it came, was a fractured, ephemeral thing, filled with nightmares that were barely distinguishable from the waking reality. It was during these desperate, endless nights that his secret became his most precious possession. a fragile link to sanity. Hidden deep within the worn leather of his boot, a small vial of Philippon, smuggled with a desperation born of sheer survival. Each night, when the sounds of death began, when the oppressive darkness threatened to swallow him whole, he would reach for it, extracting a single, small white pill. The ritual was precise, a slow, deliberate act performed in the deepest shadows, away from prying eyes. He would swallow it, the bitterness a familiar taste, and then wait. The drug wouldn't erase the suffering, but it would sharpen his senses, pull him back from the precipice of unconsciousness, allowing him to observe, to endure. It was a fragile shield, keeping him awake, alert, aware, a solitary sentinel against the encroaching despair. Through the gaps in the rough wooden fence, he would sometimes catch glimpses of the Americans, the conquerors, going about their grim work. They would throw the corpses, once men with names and families and dreams, into deep, hastily dug pits. There was no ceremony, no reverence, just the cold, efficient disposal of human remains. He remembers the sound of the earth hitting flesh, a dull, resonant thud that echoed in his bones. It was a stark, dehumanizing spectacle. In that moment, as he watched the last vestiges of human dignity disappear into the earth, he recognized the insidious paradox. Shabu, this spirit drug, had saved him from death, from succumbing to the fever, the hunger, the despair of that camp. But he knew, with a chilling certainty, that it had also, in its own way, thrown him into another hell, a prison of its own making, far more subtle and perhaps even more inescapable than the one he inhabited. The humid stillness of the prison camp dissolves, replaced by the suffocating, verdant embrace of the Burmese jungle. A flashback within a flashback, deepening the layers of memory. It is 1944. The air is thick, alive with the incessant hum of unseen insects, the metallic tang of rain-soaked earth, and the cloying scent of decaying vegetation. He is perpetually drenched, not just from the constant, unforgiving downpours, but from the sweat that streams down his face and back, soaking his uniform, never quite evaporating in the dense, stifling atmosphere. Leeches, like tiny, insatiable demons, cling to his skin, their presence a constant, itchy torment, easily dismissed amidst the larger, more existential threats. The ground beneath his feet is a treacherous, sucking mud, clinging to his boots, making every step an arduous battle. And always, the fever, a low, insidious burn that simmers beneath his skin, clouding his thoughts, stealing his strength. He remembers the officer's voice, sharp and resonant even through the exhaustion, cutting through the droning chaos of the jungle. His words, delivered with a fervent, almost hypnotic conviction, were a balm to his weary spirit, a desperate promise. The Emperor's spirit lives in this pill, the officer had shouted, his face contorted with a fierce, unwavering belief. Holding up a small, white tablet as if it were a sacred relic, a tiny, glowing beacon in the overwhelming darkness. And the man, in his profound weariness, in his desperate need for a reprieve, had believed him. He took the pill, the taste bitter and sharp on his tongue, and waited. And then, it came a subtle shift at first, a gentle tremor in his limbs, a subtle sharpening of his focus. Slowly, A profound, almost terrifying sense of invincibility began to spread through his veins. A warm, surging current that banished the gnawing hunger, silenced the insidious whispers of fear, and cauterized the searing pain of exhaustion. He felt it, a surge of boundless energy, a fierce, unwavering resolve. The leeches, the mud, the fever, they were mere inconveniences, minor details in the grand tapestry of his duty. He could march for days without food, without water, without sleep. His senses heightened, his mind clear, his body an indefatigable machine of imperial will. 72 hours. 72 hours of relentless battle. A blur of shouting, gunfire, the chilling gleam of bayonets, the desperate struggle for every inch of contested ground. He didn't sleep. He couldn't sleep. The drug held him captive in a state of hyper-awareness, an unnatural vigilance that made every rustle of leaves, every distant crack of a branch, a potential threat. Yet, within that relentless intensity, he felt a profound connection to something larger than himself. A fleeting sensation of being a conduit for the Emperor's will. A weapon forged in duty and sustained by this potent elixir. Now, years later, back in the ruins of Tokyo, in this desolate, ash-strewn reality, he swallows the very same pill. The setting is different. The enemy is different. But the desperation is the same. The cold, hard ground beneath him, the pervasive scent of destruction, the weight of crushing defeat. It all threatens to pin him down, to bury him in the rubble of what was. But that familiar bitterness on his tongue, that slow, creeping warmth spreading through his body, it offers a fleeting echo of that past invincibility. For a brief, stolen moment, he feels the strength return, a phantom echo of the soldier he once was, capable of standing, of moving, of facing the unbearable truth. The war was lost. He realizes. The empire shattered, his honor a distant memory. But the drug, this small, white pill, it kept winning. It continued its relentless, insidious conquest, claiming him, piece by fragile piece. The pervasive dampness of the Burmese jungle fades, replaced by the chill, biting air of a Tokyo evening, heavy with the smell of distant cooking fires and the metallic tang of rain. He finds himself in a small, cramped room, one of the few that managed to survive the inferno, yet bearing the scars of its violent past. The walls are cracked, spider-webbed with fissures, revealing the bare skeleton of the structure beneath. A single, naked American light bulb hangs from a frayed wire, casting a harsh, unyielding glow on the chipped plaster and the sparse, worn tatami mats. Its light is not warm or inviting, but clinical, almost accusing, illuminating every flaw, every shadow, every quiet corner where despair might linger. The silence of the night is thick, palpable, broken only by the distant, mournful cry of an owl or the soft scuttling of something unseen in the shadows. But for him, the silence is far from empty. It is filled with the deafening echoes of the war, a relentless, terrifying cacophony that resides not outside, but deep within his mind. As he tries to rest, stretched out on the thin mat, the nightmares come, swift and brutal. He is back on Saipan, the deafening roar of artillery fire, the ground trembling beneath his feet like a living beast. He sees his comrades, their faces contorted in a mix of desperate courage and profound terror. making the ultimate sacrifice. He hears their final shouts of banzai, their pleas to the Emperor, before the earth-shattering explosions, the grotesque, final act of self-destruction. The images flash before his eyes with vivid, visceral clarity: the heat of the blasts, the smell of burning flesh, the silent, falling bodies. He wakes, not slowly, but with a violent jolt. His body drenched in a cold, clammy sweat that clings to his skin. His breath comes in ragged gasps, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird desperate for release. His hands are shaking uncontrollably, a tremor that starts deep within his core and spreads outward, making every muscle in his body feel weak, unreliable. The room, though safe, feels like a tomb, the shadows on the wall twisting into grotesque, accusing shapes. He is disoriented, lost in the blurred boundary between the horrors of the past and the stark reality of the present. The raw panic claws at his throat, a primal fear that threatens to consume him. It's too much. The ghosts are too loud, the memories too vivid, the shame too heavy. His hand instinctively reaches for his pocket, for the last of the white pills. It's a desperate act, a final, fragile attempt to reclaim some semblance of control, to silence the internal storm. He retrieves it, the small, hard object of familiar comfort in his trembling fingers. With a shallow breath, he swallows it, the bitter taste a stark reminder of his dependency. And then, slowly, subtly, the warmth begins to spread. It starts in his chest, a gentle, soothing current, then radiates outward, chasing away the bone-deep chill that had gripped him. The tremors in his hands begin to subside. The frantic beating of his heart slows its furious rhythm. For a fleeting, precious moment, the world shifts. The crushing weight of defeat, the haunting echoes of the dead, the raw despair, it all recedes, replaced by a strange, ethereal calm. He feels a flicker of that old resolve, that soldier's discipline, a phantom sense of power returning to his limbs. He is, for that brief, fragile moment, a soldier again, standing tall against the ruins of his world, ready to face whatever comes. He knows, with a chilling certainty, that without that dose, that small, potent white pill, he would have been a corpse by dawn, swallowed whole by the overwhelming darkness of his own memories. The harsh, clinical light of his lonely room dissolves, bleeding into the chaotic, vibrant, yet unsettling glow of the WWII black market. The air here is a dizzying assault on the senses, a pungent cocktail of cheap tobacco smoke, the sweet, cloying scent of sake, the earthy aroma of unknown foodstuffs, and the faint, metallic tang of desperation that seems to hang heavy over everything. It's a swirling vortex of humanity, a stark contrast to the quiet desolation of the bombed-out districts. Neon lights, salvaged or painstakingly repaired, flicker erratically, casting lurid, shifting hues over makeshift stalls piled high with stolen goods, salvaged relics, and forbidden desires. He moves through the throng, his shoulders brushing against strangers, a silent, solitary figure amidst the clamor. The streets teem with a motley collection of souls, each seeking something, escaping something. Prostitutes, their faces painted with a defiant mask of allure, call out in hushed, alluring tones, their voices weaving through the din. Deserters, their eyes furtive and wary, blend into the shadows, clutching their meager possessions, forever looking over their shoulders. Street thugs, their swagger a brittle veneer over their own anxieties. Eye passers-by with predatory gazes, their hands never far from their pockets. This is the new Tokyo, a city reinventing itself in the shadows, fueled by illicit trade and raw survival. And at the heart of it, feeding its hungry veins, is the black market. It thrives, a sprawling, organic entity, on the remnants of the fallen empire. Leftover military Philippon, once a secret weapon, is now its most coveted currency. He can feel its presence, a subtle hum beneath the surface noise, a shared, unspoken knowledge that permeates the air. His gaze, accustomed to the dimness, scans the faces, the stalls, searching for the telltale sign, the knowing glance. He finds him, a man with shrewd eyes and a perpetual smirk etched on his face, surrounded by an assortment of scavenged goods. He recognizes the desperation in his gaze, the unspoken plea in his weary posture. He reaches into his tattered uniform, his fingers closing around the cold, smooth metal of his officer's watch, a relic of a past life, a symbol of a forgotten status. It was a gift from his father, a testament to his lineage, his duty. Now, it is merely a means to an end. With a silent, almost ritualistic gesture, he offers it to him. The dealer takes it, turning the watch over in his palm, his eyes gleaming with a predatory satisfaction. He knows its value, both sentimental and material, and he knows the man's hunger. He smirks, a cynical twist of his lips. "The empire fell," he says, his voice a low but gravelly whisper that carries over the din. But its medicine still conquers men. His words cut deeper than any blade, slicing through the last vestiges of his pride. He hands him a small, crudely wrapped paper packet, light in his hand, yet impossibly heavy with its promise of false solace. He holds the packet, not like contraband, but like sacred relics, the last tangible link to a world that no longer exists, a desperate key to unlocking a fleeting moment of peace. Once he enters this black market, he knows, with a profound and chilling certainty, there is no return. He is now inextricably bound to its shadowy rhythm, its desperate exchange. The chaotic symphony of the black market recedes as he pulls away, clutching the paper packet to his chest as if it were the most fragile, precious thing in the world. The flickering neon lights cast long, distorted shadows that seem to dance and mock him, reflecting the disquiet within. He finds a secluded, shadowed alleyway, the air thick with the smell of damp refuse and stale despair. Here, away from prying eyes, he performs the ritual, his hands trembling slightly as he carefully opens the packet. The small-tin white pills gleam dully in the dim light, promising a brief respite from the relentless ache of his reality. He swallows the first dose, the bitterness a familiar, almost comforting sensation, and then he waits. It starts slowly, a subtle tingling beneath his skin, a faint hum that gradually builds in intensity. A wave of warmth begins to spread through his limbs, chasing away the cold, the weariness, the pervasive sense of dread that had become his constant companion. The world around him seems to sharpen. Colors grow more vibrant, sounds more distinct, for a fleeting, glorious moment. The fog in his mind begins to lift, replaced by a crystalline clarity, a surge of almost forgotten energy. In that powerful, illusory rush, he feels it, the phantom echo of his past self. His spine straightens, his chest swells, and he finds himself marching, not through the rubble of Tokyo, but through the jungles of Burma, through the disciplined ranks of his comrades. He is a soldier again, upright, resolute, fueled by an unwavering sense of duty, immune to fear, impervious to pain. The weight of his uniform, though tattered and faded, feels momentarily heavy with the dignity of its original purpose. He imagines the crisp snap of the flag, the proud declaration of his allegiance. As he strides forward, propelled by this potent illusion, he emerges from the alley, unknowingly drawing attention. People on the street, survivors hardened by war and scarcity, turn their heads to stare. He expects awe, perhaps a recognition of the soldier within him, a flicker of respect for the sacrifice. But there is none. Instead, their gazes are not of admiration, but of a profound, unsettling pity. Their eyes hold a mixture of sorrow and a knowing sadness, a silent recognition of something broken, something lost. They see not a warrior, but a ghost, a specter of a shattered past, wandering aimlessly in a present that has no place for him. He whispers to himself, the words a desperate plea against the encroaching truth. At least I'm still fighting. The words are meant to bolster his spirit, to reaffirm a purpose that feels increasingly tenuous. But even as he utters them, a cold, undeniable voice in the back of his mind delivers the stark, brutal truth. He is fighting nothing. He is not battling an enemy, not defending an empire, not upholding honor. The only war he is truly waging, the only battle he is relentlessly losing, is against the gnawing, insidious beast of withdrawal. Every pill, every dose, is a fake victory, a hollow triumph, providing a momentary illusion of strength. But beneath that fragile facade, he knows, with a chilling certainty, it is a real defeat, steadily eroding the very core of who he once were. The fleeting illusion of a soldier's march dissolves into the stark, repetitive rhythm of his new reality. A relentless cycle orchestrated by the tiny white pills. Each day begins not with the rising sun, but with the cold, insistent demands of his body, a craving that burns hotter than any fever. The first pill of the morning is a grim necessity, a forced communion with his addiction. He takes it, not with the fervent belief of a warrior, but with the quiet resignation of a prisoner. It's the key that allows him to simply stand, to pull his aching limbs from the thin tatami mat, to face the desolate landscape of defeated Tokyo. It's the small boost that gives him the strength to join the endless, shuffling queues for meager rations, his face carefully blank, eyes downcast, trying to avoid the pity or contempt in others' gazes. As the day progresses, the initial lift begins to wane, leaving him hollow and restless. The ghosts in his head, once silenced, begin their insidious whispers again. Memories of fallen comrades, the cries of the dying, the roar of bombs, they all return. A relentless cacophony that threatens to shatter his fragile composure. The night shot, then, becomes not just a craving, but an urgent, desperate necessity. It is the ritual he performs in the quiet, desolate hours, a desperate attempt to silence those accusing voices, to dull the sharp edges of his past. The familiar burn, the quick rush, and then, for a brief, stolen period. The blessed stillness, the quiet that allows him to sink into a troubled, fragmented sleep. His life becomes a meticulously choreographed dance of concealment. The pills are hidden everywhere, tucked away in empty tea cans. Their brittle leaves long since consumed, nestled discreetly beneath the worn edges of the tatami mats, even sewn into the lining of his tattered uniform. A constant, secret companion. Each hiding place is a testament to the paranoia that gnaws at him, the fear of exposure, the terror of discovery. He moves through his days with a heightened sense of awareness, constantly alert, his eyes darting, his ears straining, always protecting his secret. The thought of a single day without it sends a cold shiver of terror through his very being. He's experienced it. The creeping dread that starts in his gut, the nausea that twists his stomach into knots, the rising panic that grips his chest, making every breath a shallow struggle. His hands begin to shake uncontrollably, his muscles twitching with an unbearable restlessness. His skin crawls, his mind races, caught in a terrifying spiral of anxiety and despair. It's a physical and mental torment, a stark, undeniable proof of the invisible chains that bind him. And yet, despite the undeniable evidence, despite the meticulous hiding places, despite the agonizing withdrawal, he whispers the lie to himself, a fragile incantation against the truth. I'm still in control. The words are a desperate attempt to cling to the illusion of agency, to convince himself that he is not merely a puppet of this tiny white powder. But the question, cold and unyielding, echoes in the depths of his mind, a constant, insidious hum beneath the surface of his denial. But who controls whom? The dull, repetitive ritual of his daily existence is suddenly pierced by a familiar sound, a distant, yet sharp clang that ripples through the thin walls of his dwelling. It's the sound of a tram bell, a mundane, everyday noise in the rebuilt corners of Tokyo. But for him, it is a hammer blow to the fragile barrier around his memories, transforming instantly into the terrifying, metallic echo of artillery. The sound resonates deep in his bones, bringing with it the visceral memory of Saipan, the relentless shelling, the earth trembling with each impact, the air thick with the roar of explosions and the screams of the dying. The mundane smells of the city, the pervasive scent of grilling fish from a nearby street vendor, mingling with the ever-present aroma of smoke from smoldering ruins and countless cooking fires, suddenly twist and transform in his mind. They are no longer the simple odors of post-war life, but become the sickening, unforgettable smell of burning flesh, the acrid scent of ruptured earth, and the metallic tang of blood. His stomach lurches, a wave of nausea washing over him, as his mind overlays the present with the unbearable sensory details of the past. He catches his reflection in a cracked mirror, its fractured surface reflecting a distorted image, a nightmare captured in glass. What stares back is not simply him, the weary man struggling through the day, but a terrifying hybrid, half a soldier, his uniform ragged and faded, his eyes haunted by unspeakable horrors, and half a corpse, his skin pale and stretched, his features gaunt, etched with the ravages of war and addiction. The mirror, in its cruel honesty, shows him a face that is a battlefield, a silent testament to the war he never truly left. He traces the lines of exhaustion, the hollows beneath his eyes, the pallor of his skin. This fractured image is a constant, unsettling reminder of the man he was, the man he's become, and the inevitable decay that seems to be claiming him piece by piece, even in the quietest moments. When the city's sounds fade to a hushed murmur, the silence is not truly silent. It is filled with the phantom roar of the Pacific waves, the relentless, rhythmic crash of water against the shores of Saipan, a sound that carries with it the echoes of desperate battles, of final, desperate charges, of countless lives swallowed by the sea. He hears the wind whistling through the skeletons of Tokyo's buildings, and in his mind, it becomes the mournful sigh of the wind across the desolate beaches where his comrades fell. He closes his eyes, trying to escape the auditory hallucinations, but they cling to him, an invisible shroud, a constant soundtrack to his waking nightmare. The boundaries between the present and the past blur, distorting his reality. He no longer knew which war he was still fighting, the one that ended with the empire's fall, or the one that raged endlessly within the confines of his own shattered mind. The relentless internal war he wages begins to manifest itself physically, a cruel, undeniable betrayal by the very vessel that carried him through battle. He catches his reflection again, perhaps in a grimy shop window, and the image is stark, almost unrecognizable. His skin, once tanned by the suns of Burma and the Philippines, is now a ghastly pale, stretched tightly over the sharp angles of his bones. His eyes, once sharp and alert, are sunken, rimmed with an angry, perpetual red, mirroring the sleepless nights, the constant strain, and then the small, insidious details. His teeth, once strong, now appear loose, some even beginning to fall out, leaving unsightly gaps, a testament to the neglect and the corrosive power of the drug. His heart, once a steady drumbeat of a soldier, now races wildly, a frantic, irregular rhythm that constantly threatens to burst from his chest. It thunders in his ears, a constant reminder of the chemical tempest raging within. His stomach, once accustomed to the gnawing hunger of wartime, is now a hollow, churning void, rejecting any attempt at sustenance. Food, when he manages to acquire it, holds no appeal, tastes like ash, and often comes back up, leaving him weaker, more depleted. Sleep, the restorative balm of a tired body, has become an impossible dream. He lies awake for endless hours, his mind a frenzied carousel of thoughts and anxieties, his body twitching with a restless energy that offers no real movement, only a profound, exhausting stillness. Meth, in its cruel efficiency, has replaced everything. It has supplanted the basic need for food, stripping away his appetite, leaving him sustained only by its false energy. It has replaced faith, the belief in an emperor, in a cause, in a future all swallowed by the immediate, overwhelming demand for the next dose. And it has utterly annihilated the possibility of rest, twisting the natural rhythm of his body into a perpetual state of hyper-alertness, a destructive vigilance. He is a machine running on fumes, powered by a toxic fuel that is systematically dismantling its own intricate parts. He stands before the mirror, a silent, helpless witness to his own slow, inexorable decay. Each day, the reflection shows a more hollowed-out version of himself, a further erosion of the man he once was. The lines on his face deepen, the shadows beneath his eyes lengthen, the vibrancy drains from his skin. He watches, detached yet intimately involved, as his body fades, becoming a mere vessel for the drug's relentless work. The ghost in the glass. A spectral figure with vacant eyes and a skeletal frame that was him. A chilling truth that resonates deep within his bones. An undeniable testament to the war he is losing against himself. The hollow gaze of his reflection recedes, replaced by the grim, echoing reality of his desperate need. The pills, once a secret solace, have become a relentless master, their demands growing ever more insatiable. The small Thai paper packets from the black market are no longer enough. Or perhaps his body has simply become accustomed to their potency, requiring more, always more. He finds himself standing before the pawn shop, its grimy window reflecting the gray, indifferent sky of Tokyo. The air here, in this older, more established part of the city, carries the faint scent of mildew and mothballs, clinging to the relics of forgotten lives. His hand trembles as he reaches into his bag, pulling out the last tangible links to his past, the final vestiges of his identity as a proud soldier of the empire. First, his medals, their ribbons faded, their metallic surfaces dulled with time and neglect. Each one represents a battle fought, a commendation earned, a moment of profound courage. They are heavy in his palm, not just with their physical weight, but with the immense, crushing weight of memory and shattered honor. He remembers the solemn ceremony, the proud glint in his father's eye as they were pinned to his chest. Now, they are mere trinkets, commodities to be exchanged for a moment of fleeting relief. Then, his uniform, not the tattered, worn one he now wears, but a more formal one, carefully preserved, though also showing the signs of years in storage. The fabric, once crisp and sharp, is soft with age, its creases still holding the memory of a posture long abandoned. It is the uniform of a proud officer, a symbol of his rank, his duty, his allegiance to an empire that no longer exists. He holds it, the fabric a ghost against his skin, and whispers the brutal truth. Honor doesn't feed the hungry. It is a cold, stark calculation, a desperate prioritization of immediate survival over cherished principle. And finally, the most painful offering of all his father's katana. It is a masterpiece of craftsmanship, its blade a mirror-bright steel that seems to hold the very soul of his ancestors, a legacy of samurai pride. The hilt is wrapped in silk, worn smooth by generations of hands. It is not merely a weapon, it is a sacred object, an embodiment of Bushido, the warrior's code he was taught to uphold above all else. Its weight is familiar in his hand, a comforting solidity. Yet it feels impossibly heavy with the burden of what he is about to do. Each relic, each precious fragment of his past, turns into a handful of pills, a small paper packet. The exchange is swift, almost clinical. The pawnbroker's eyes devoid of judgment, seeing only the transaction. As he walks away, the lightness in his bag is replaced by the phantom weight of what he has lost. But the small, precious packet in his hand offers a temporary solace. A bitter, almost maniacal laugh escapes his lips, a dry, hollow sound that scrapes against the quiet desolation of the street. "Even the Emperor can't save me now," he mutters, the words a chilling testament to his utter despair. He looks at the pills, their white surfaces gleaming like tiny, indifferent gods. When everything's gone, he thinks. The chilling thought a cold, clear pronouncement. he'll sell his body next. The path he is on leads inexorably to the ultimate degradation, a journey into the abyss where only the drug dictates his worth. The weight of his souled memories settles heavily in the air as he wanders. The ghost of his father's katana, still a phantom presence in his empty hand. He drifts through the quieter, forgotten corners of Tokyo, where the rubble still lies undisturbed, a silent testament to the war's unyielding impact. The chill of the evening settles, and the air carries the faint, nostalgic scent of damp earth and distant cooking fires. It is in one of these derelict, forgotten pockets, near a collapsed shrine, that he encounters a familiar face, a ghost from his past. He is an old comrade, a man whose eyes still hold the distant, haunted look of someone who has stared into the void and returned. He was a kamikaze, one of the elite, the chosen few destined for glorious, sacrificial death. But fate, in its cruel indifference, had spared him, denying him the honor he had so fervently sought. He had never taken off, his mission aborted at the last moment, leaving him adrift in a world that no longer recognized his sacrifice or his purpose. He, like the protagonist, is a survivor, but survival has brought only a different kind of torment. They recognize each other not through shared words at first, but through a mutual understanding in their eyes, a silent acknowledgement of a shared, unspeakable burden. The comrade gestures him into his makeshift shelter, a small, barely protected alcove amidst a tumble of broken stone. The light inside is dim, cast by a single, flickering candle, making the shadows dance like tormented spirits. The air is thick with the sweet, cloying smell of philopon, a scent that is both repulsive and deeply familiar. The comrade speaks, his voice raspy, his words laced with a profound weariness. He tells of his nights, of the ritual he performs, a desperate, nightly flight into oblivion. He pulls out a syringe, its needle glinting ominously in the candlelight, and a small vial of the potent drug. As he prepares the injection, his movements are precise, almost reverent. He shoots up, the sudden rush visible in the sharp intake of his breath, the subtle tremor that runs through his body. "It's like flying again," he whispers, his eyes wide, distant, lost in a fleeting moment of artificial exaltation. In that drug-induced haze, he reclaims, for a brief, precious instant, the purpose he was denied, the glory he was promised. Together, they share doses, a grim communion between two broken soldiers. The drug loosens their tongues, and they speak of the war, not of strategy or victories, but of the mud, the blood, the fear, the faces of the fallen. They trade war stories, not with pride, but with a hollow melancholy. Each shared memory a further confirmation of the Empire's demise, the meaninglessness of their sacrifice. The candle flickers, casting their shadows long and grotesque against the ruined wall. Two specters clinging to the last vestiges of a shared past. They fall into a troubled sleep, the drug a thin veil over the horrors of memory. When he wakes, the first fragile rays of sunrise are filtering through the gaps in the ruins. The air is cold, still, and carries a new, unsettling silence. His comrade is still there, stretched out beside him. But something is different. His face is still, unnaturally so, the flicker of artificial life extinguished. He is found dead by the river, not far from their shared alcove, the needle still clutched loosely in his hand, a testament to his final, desperate flight. He died as a warrior, the protagonist thinks. A bitter, envious thought, finding a strange kind of peace in his drug-induced departure. I'm just dying slowly, a long, drawn-out agony, a lingering punishment. The cold silence of his dead comrade's final moments lingers, a stark reminder of his own slow decay. The thin light of dawn brings not solace, but a renewed sense of exposure, of vulnerability. He walks the streets, his head bowed, seeking anonymity in the growing bustle of the city. The air feels crisp and raw against his skin, carrying the scent of burning charcoal and the faint, sweet smell of exhaust from American Jeeps. These vehicles, symbols of the occupation, are a constant, grating presence. Their powerful engines and polished chrome a stark contrast to the shattered landscape around them. As he navigates the narrow alleys, trying to blend into the shadows, a sudden, jarring sound slices through the morning quiet, the rumble of a military patrol. His heart clenches, a familiar knot of fear tightening in his stomach. He tries to avert his gaze, to seem invisible, but it's too late. The Jeep slows, its tires crunching on the loose gravel, and then stops. Two American soldiers, towering figures in their clean, pressed uniforms, their faces unlined by the same hunger and despair that gnaws at him. Dismount. Their boots, heavy and deliberate, echo on the pavement. They approach him, their demeanor cool, authoritative. One of them, a young man with a carelessly confident grin, speaks in a language he barely understands. But the tone is unmistakable accusatory, dismissive. He is stopped, singled out. They search his pockets, their hands rough and impersonal, rummaging through his few, meager possessions. There is a moment of excruciating suspense, a slow motion agony as their fingers brush against the familiar shape. The small, brittle packet, the remnants of his stolen Philippon. They find it. The packet is pulled out, held up to the harsh morning light, a stark white testament to his shame. The young soldier with the grin glances at it, then at him, and a cruel laugh erupts from his throat, a sharp, cutting sound that pierces the quiet street. Bushido, he mocks, his voice dripping with derision. You mean bullshit. The words, though delivered in English, translate perfectly in their contempt. He tosses the packet back at him, a gesture of profound disrespect, a flick of his wrist that dismisses not just the drug, but everything it represented: his country, his past, his very being. The shame that washes over him is a suffocating wave, far more potent and agonizing than any physical blow. It burns worse than the persistent hunger in his gut, deeper than the gnawing cold that often settles in his bones. It is a humiliation that sears into his very soul. He stands there, frozen, his gaze fixed on the ground, unable to meet their eyes, unable to respond. He bows his head, a deep, silent gesture of submission, not out of respect, but out of a profound, ingrained reflex to avoid further confrontation, further degradation. He turns and walks away, his feet dragging, each step a testament to his broken spirit. The laughter of the American soldiers follows him, a mocking echo that reverberates in his ears, long after he's disappeared around the corner. He realizes, with a chilling clarity, that he wasn't their prisoner anymore. Not truly. He was just Shabu's, forever bound by its insidious chains. The stinging humiliation of the American soldier's laughter echoes in the hollow chambers of his mind. a constant reminder of his diminished state. But the shame, potent as it is, cannot override the deeper, more insistent demands of his body. The whispers of withdrawal, once a distant threat, are now a roaring torrent, a relentless craving that consumes his every thought, his every action. The single pill, once a powerful key to false invincibility, has lost its edge. His body, a fortress besieged by chemical warfare, has adapted, demanding more, always more. One pill becomes 3, then 5. The ritual grows more desperate, more frequent. The brief, fleeting warmth, the sharp clarity, quickly dissipates, leaving him craving the next hit, chasing that elusive peak. He finds himself spending every waking moment, every ounce of his dwindling energy, in the relentless pursuit of the drug. The black market dealers know his face now, their eyes holding a predatory gleam, recognizing the deepening spiral of his addiction. He trades whatever meager possessions he has left, scrounging for coin, making desperate bargains, anything for the small, precious packets. When the drug finally enters his system, the rush is different now, more violent, more overwhelming. His veins buzz with an almost painful intensity, a frenetic energy that vibrates through every nerve ending. His eyes, already red-rimmed and sunken, bulge slightly, reflecting the internal pressure, the chemical storm raging within. His heart, already weary from the constant strain, begins to thunder in his chest, a frantic, desperate rhythm that threatens to burst forth. It feels as if his very essence is being stretched taut, pulled to a breaking point. And then, in the peak of this overwhelming surge, the hallucinations begin. Not the haunting memories of Saipan or Burma, but a new, more insidious vision. He sees him, the Emperor. He appears not in the distant, majestic form of official portraits, but close, intimately, his face illuminated with a gentle, benevolent smile. "You've served well, my son," he whispers, his voice soft, almost ethereal, echoing with ancient wisdom and profound approval. The words are a balm to his shattered soul, a sudden, blinding affirmation of his lost honor, his forgotten purpose. Tears stream down his face, hot and cleansing, mingling with the blood that sometimes trickles from his cracked lips. A stark contrast between the internal beauty and the external decay. He struggles to stand at attention, his trembling limbs fighting against the overwhelming surge. But he manages a shaky, desperate salute. It is a final, fleeting act of devotion, a desperate plea for absolution from the ghost of his emperor, a momentary return to the glory he once knew. He knows, with a chilling certainty that pierces through the drug-induced haze, that this escalating spiral, these higher and higher doses, are slowly, inexorably killing him. But the grip of the drug is too strong, its promise of fleeting solace too alluring. He couldn't stop. He couldn't. The thought of stopping is a greater terror than the thought of death itself. The hallucinatory smile of the Emperor fades, leaving him once again in the stark, unforgiving reality of post-war Tokyo. The overwhelming rush of the drug gives way to a profound exhaustion, leaving his body depleted, trembling, and deeply aching. As he wanders through the ruined streets, his eyes are drawn not to the familiar devastation, but to something new, something powerful emerging from the ashes. Here, amidst the shattered remnants of homes and lives, he sees them. the women of Tokyo. They are everywhere, small, determined figures moving through the rubble, their backs bent, their hands calloused, their faces streaked with dust and sweat. They are rebuilding, brick by painstaking brick, carrying heavy stones salvaged from the wreckage, clearing debris with a quiet, unwavering resolve. Their movements are rhythmic, purposeful, a stark contrast to his own aimless drift. He watches them from the shadows, hidden behind a crumbling wall, his body trembling with a mixture of withdrawal and a profound, gnawing shame. The sight of their unwavering strength, their relentless toil, is a searing indictment of his own inaction, his own self-destruction. They are mothers, sisters, wives, the bedrock of a society that has crumbled. Yet they rise, carrying the weight of the future on their shoulders. Their resilience shames him more deeply than any defeat on the battlefield, more profoundly than the scorn of the American soldiers. They lost their homes, their husbands, their sons. Yet they continue, driven by an innate, powerful urge to rebuild, to nurture, to survive. He whispers to himself, the words a rough, dry rasp in his throat. They rebuild, I destroy. The truth is a bitter, inescapable taste in his mouth. While they labor to bring structure and hope back to the shattered landscape, he is systematically dismantling himself, consuming his own substance, eroding his own spirit. He is a destructive force, even to himself, a stark contrast to their life-affirming efforts. As he watches, one woman, her face smudged with dirt but her eyes clear and resolute, pauses in her work. Her gaze, steady and unflinching, meets his across the expanse of rubble. She doesn't flinch, doesn't turn away in fear or disgust. Instead, her eyes hold a mixture of profound sorrow and a quiet, burning question. She looks at his hollowed-out face, his trembling hands, his tattered uniform, and then sweeps her gaze across the vast, desolate landscape of the city. "You fought for this," she asks, her voice soft, yet piercing, carrying the weight of unspeakable loss and unyielding determination. The question hangs in the air, echoing through the ruins. It is not an accusation, but a lament, a profound query about the cost of his war, the meaning of his sacrifice. They carried stones, he realizes, a painful, self-evident truth, while he carried poison. The contrast is unbearable, the weight of it pressing down on him like a physical burden. The woman's piercing question, her silent accusation, continues to echo in the desolate corners of his mind, a haunting refrain that deepens the chasm of his shame. Her image, strong and resolute amidst the rubble, is a stark counterpoint to the relentless decay that is now consuming his own flesh. A visible, undeniable manifestation of the poison he carries within. He catches a glimpse of his reflection in a puddle, disturbed by a gentle breeze, and the image is horrifying. His skin, once flushed with life, is now a map of desiccation. It is cracked, dry, and brittle, particularly around his lips, which bleed easily, leaving a faint, metallic taste in his mouth. Every movement, every stretch of his skin is accompanied by a subtle discomfort, a persistent itch that he scratches constantly, leaving small, red abrasions. His hands, once capable of wielding a katana with precision, now shake uncontrollably, a perpetual tremor that makes even the simplest tasks a profound challenge. The raw, exposed flesh around his knuckles is a testament to countless hidden wounds. The price of his addiction. The once familiar rhythm of his body is utterly broken. He attempts to climb a simple flight of stairs, a few rickety wooden steps leading to a makeshift shelter, and finds himself gasping for breath, his lungs burning, his heart hammering a frantic, desperate rhythm. Each step is an agonizing effort, a profound struggle against the overwhelming weariness that permeates every muscle, every bone. His legs feel like lead, his body screaming in protest. The air, thin and cold, seems to offer no sustenance to his laboring lungs. As he moves through the crowded thoroughfares, or what passes for them in this ruined city, people instinctively step aside. They part like water around a stone, creating a small, invisible bubble of avoidance around him. It's not just his haggard appearance, his tattered clothes, or the unsettling tremor in his limbs that makes them recoil. It is the stench. A faint, yet persistent odor of sickness, of decay, of something profoundly unhealthy, clings to him, following him like a shadow. It's a smell that speaks of neglect, of compromised vitality, of an insidious internal rot that is now breaking through to the surface. It is the unmistakable stench of death, clinging to a body that stubbornly refuses to fall. And yet, despite all this, despite the visible evidence of his rapid decline, despite the discomfort, the shame, the physical pain, he still seeks the needle. He still injects the poison. Each shot a desperate, futile attempt to feel alive. The fleeting rush, the momentary surge of false energy, the brief reprieve from the crushing reality, it is all that matters. In those brief, stolen moments, he clings to the illusion of vitality, ignoring the screaming protest of his flesh, the undeniable signs of his impending demise. He wasn't human anymore, he realizes, with a chilling resignation. Just a corpse that stubbornly refused to fall. Still walking, still breathing, still enduring, fueled by the very thing that was destroying him. The profound, physical decay of his body, the stench of death that clings to him, becomes a silent companion as he drifts deeper into the shadows of Tokyo's underworld. The pills, once swallowed in furtive desperation, are no longer potent enough to quell the relentless craving, to deliver the necessary escape. His body demands more, faster, purer. He is drawn, inexorably, to the darker corners, the places where the true depths of addiction are explored. He finds him in a dim, reeking alleyway, lit only by the distant, fractured glow of a street lamp. He is a new dealer, his face obscured by shadows, his voice a low, gravelly whisper that holds a chilling allure. He sees the desperation in his eyes, the profound weariness in his stance, and he knows precisely what he needs, what he is ready for. He produces a syringe, its needle glinting menacingly in the faint light, a small glass vial filled with a potent, crystalline liquid. His words, soft and insidious, are not a question, but a command, a final push over the precipice. Inject it, faster, purer. His hands, shaking with anticipation and a tremor that now seems a permanent part of his being. Accept the syringe. The ritual is grim, practiced, yet filled with a terrifying new urgency. He finds a vein, a bruised, prominent blue line beneath his ravaged skin. The needle slides in with a faint, almost imperceptible prick. He pushes the plunger, and the liquid, cold and alien, enters his bloodstream. For seconds, just mere seconds, the world explodes. It hits him like a thunderclap, a sudden, overwhelming torrent of sensation that obliterates all pain, all shame, all fear. He is infinite, boundless, soaring beyond the confines of his decaying body, beyond the ruins of Tokyo, beyond the crushing weight of his past. Colors are impossibly vibrant. Sounds are crystal clear. Thoughts race with exhilarating speed. It is a terrifying, magnificent peak. A moment of profound, unnatural ecstasy. But it is fleeting. Almost as quickly as it arrives, it vanishes, leaving behind a brutal, agonizing aftermath. The initial rush gives way to a wave of intense pain. A burning ache in his limbs, a throbbing behind his eyes. His body, already ravaged, reacts with a violent protest. Sores, inflamed and weeping, begin to appear on his skin, particularly around the injection sites, ugly testament to the repeated violation of his flesh. Blood, dark and viscous, sometimes wells up around the puncture marks, a stark, visceral reminder of the price he pays. The evidence of this new, more destructive path is clear, visible for all to see. But he hides it, fiercely, frantically. His arms, scarred and discolored, are kept perpetually covered by rags, by the tattered sleeves of his uniform, a desperate attempt to maintain the last vestiges of his secret. There was no line left between blood and drug, he realizes, as he inspects the damaged skin. The words a cold, undeniable truth that chills him to his very core. They had become one, inextricably intertwined, each feeding the other, until his very essence was consumed by the insidious poison. The physical and mental toll of injecting the pure drug becomes an inescapable reality, pushing him further to the margins of a society that barely tolerates his existence. He is utterly consumed, a hollowed-out shell, driven solely by the relentless, all-encompassing need for the next dose. His makeshift shelters, once temporary havens, are abandoned, deemed too permanent for a life that is now in constant, desperate motion. He becomes a shadow, a ghost among the living, finding his sanctuary, or what passes for it, in the bustling yet indifferent embrace of Ueno Station. Here, under the vast, cavernous archways of the station, amid the constant stream of commuters and the desperate shuffle of other lost souls, he makes his bed on the cold, hard stone floor. The air is a constant mixture of stale cigarettes, hurried footsteps, and the faint, underlying scent of despair. Sleep is a fractured, fleeting thing, constantly interrupted by the clang of distant train cars, the hurried footsteps of strangers, or the gnawing ache of withdrawal that never truly leaves him. He feeds on leftovers, discarded scraps of food left behind by those who still possess the luxury of choice, each morsel a profound act of degradation. The transaction for his next fix grows more desperate, more profound. He trades not just relics, not just scavenged goods, but his very blood. A small vial, a few precious drops drawn from his ravaged veins, exchanged for the white powder, the clear liquid that promises a momentary reprieve. It is a grim, direct exchange of life for poison, a literal draining of his essence. Outside the station, the city of Tokyo continues its relentless, desperate attempt to rebuild, to forget. Neon lights, garish and bright, pierce the evening darkness. casting a vibrant, artificial glow over the streets. They illuminate the faces of the hopeful, the resilient, the determined, those who still believe in a future beyond the ashes. The brilliant hues of red, blue, and green dance across the wet pavement, reflecting a semblance of vibrancy, a fragile hope. But these neon lights, no matter how bright, cannot penetrate his darkness. They cannot reach the profound, internal void that has become his constant companion. He sits, hunched, his gaze fixed on the endless, indifferent flow of humanity, and a low, guttural mutter escapes his lips, a chilling pronouncement that holds the weight of his entire existence. The war never ended. For him, it is a brutal truth. The bombs may have stopped falling, the guns may have fallen silent, but the battle rages on, relentlessly, within the confines of his own shattered mind. His ravaged body, Shabu, he realizes, with a profound and terrifying clarity, became my homeland, my God, and my hell. It is the landscape of his existence, the master of his spirit, and the architect of his slow, agonizing demise. The relentless, numbing rhythm of existence in Ueno Station. The flickering neon lights failing to penetrate his inner darkness gives way to a more profound, more terrifying descent. The drug, once a key to false clarity, has now systematically dismantled the very architecture of his mind. The line between reality and hallucination, already thin and permeable, dissolves completely, plunging him into a chaotic, terrifying maelstrom of distorted perceptions. The silence of his moments alone is no longer silent. It is filled with the cacophony of war, not just distant echoes, but vivid, visceral sounds that manifest with shocking clarity. He hears the deafening roar of bombs, the earth-shattering impacts that send phantom tremors through his body. The air fills with the piercing screams of dying comrades, their voices raw with agony and despair, as real to him as the pounding of his own heart. He sees them, their faces contorted in terror, their bodies twisted in gruesome ways, their eyes fixed on him with silent accusation. He responds to these spectral visitors, these terrifying figments of his shattered mind. He salutes shadows, their indistinct forms twisting into the shapes of officers, of the Emperor himself, demanding obedience, demanding respect. He cries out to ghosts, their silent faces appearing in the shifting patterns of light and shadow, begging for forgiveness, for solace, for an end to the torment. His words are often disjointed, his voice raspy, sometimes a desperate plea, sometimes a frantic outburst, sometimes a sorrowful lament. He argues with unseen tormentors, relives battles long past, performs duties for an empire that has vanished into dust. Civilians, hurrying past in the station or averting their eyes in the street, now stare at him openly, their gazes filled with a mixture of fear, pity, and profound discomfort. They see not a broken veteran, not a man ravaged by war and addiction, but a madman, a danger, an unpredictable element in their desperate struggle to rebuild. Their stares are like physical blows, each one a fresh reminder of his isolation, his profound detachment from the shared reality of humanity. They whisper about him, their hushed tones carrying the judgment of a society that has no room for his madness, his lingering specters. He is still fighting, he realizes, as the terrifying clarity of this new truth pierces through the haze of his hallucinations. But the enemy is no longer a physical foe, no longer an opposing army, no longer even the insidious grip of the drug itself. He is fighting against himself, against the fragments of his own mind, the shattered remnants of his past, the relentless echoes of his trauma. The battlefield is now entirely internal, and the war is one he is destined to lose, slowly, agonizingly, as his mind tears itself apart, piece by agonizing piece. The relentless cacophony of his shattered mind, the spectral screams and endless battles, finally begins to recede, not into silence, but into a profound, almost dreamlike stillness. He finds himself in a ruined room, far from the bustling chaos of Ueno Station, a place of profound solitude, where the weight of existence feels both heavy and strangely distant. The only light comes from a single, flickering candle, its tiny flame casting dancing shadows that sway and stretch, making the bare, cracked walls seem to breathe with a quiet, ephemeral life. The air is cold, still, carrying the faint, familiar scent of damp earth and the lingering, sweet, sick odor of the drug. His hands, which have trembled for so long, are now steady, imbued with a strange, almost eerie calm. He reaches for the syringe, its cold, hard glass a familiar weight in his fingers. He fills it slowly, meticulously, drawing the clear, potent liquid from the small vial. Each movement is deliberate, precise, imbued with a quiet, ritualistic significance. There is no frantic urgency now, no desperate craving, just a profound, unsettling peace. This is the last of it. The final dose, the final act. He looks at the small, charred photograph of his mother, tucked into a crevice in the wall, illuminated by the candle's wavering light. Her ghost-like smile, barely visible through the smoke stains, seems to gaze at him with an eternal, unwavering love. He whispers to her, the words a raw, guttural sound that scrapes against the silence. Forgive me. It is a plea for absolution, an acknowledgement of the path he has taken, the honor he has lost, the life he has squandered, a final, desperate cry for understanding from the one who loved him unconditionally. The needle slides into his vein, a familiar, almost comforting prick. He pushes the plunger, slowly, deliberately, watching as the last of the liquid enters his bloodstream. And then, it comes. Not the thunderclap, not the violent explosion of earlier doses, but a profound, overwhelming warmth. It spreads through his body, a gentle, soothing current, chasing away the cold, the pain, the fear. It fills every hollow space, every aching void, bringing with it a deep, enveloping stillness. The screams in his mind recede, the images of war dissolve, the relentless tremor in his limbs finally ceases, and then silence, a profound, absolute silence, more encompassing than any he has ever known. It is the silence of true peace, the quiet cessation of all struggle, all torment. If this is death, he thinks, the thought a gentle, fleeting whisper in the dissolving space of his consciousness, it's kinder than life. The candle flickers, casting one last, long shadow, and then, in the profound quiet, it goes out. Morning. The silence that had descended upon the ruined room remains, unbroken by the stir of life. The faint, pearly light of a new dawn filters through the shattered window, illuminating the stark reality of the final scene. His body lies cold and still on the worn tatami mat, a fragile, hollow shell finally released from its torment. The peace on his face, though gaunt and pale, is undeniable. A quiet resignation that death, in its finality, has offered a cruel mercy. Beside his outstretched hand, a broken katana lies on the floor. It is his father's sword, the sacred symbol of honor and lineage, now irrevocably shattered. Its blade, once gleaming and sharp, is snapped near the hilt, a powerful metaphor for the profound breaking of the warrior's code, the irreversible fragmentation of a proud heritage. Its presence is a silent, poignant testament to the war he lost, not on the battlefield, but within the confines of his own soul. On the crumbling wall above, someone has scratched a message, perhaps with a piece of charcoal, perhaps with a nail, their intentions lost to time. The words are stark, simple, yet resonate with a profound, universal plea. Never again war. It is a desperate hope, a whispered prayer etched into the very fabric of destruction, a yearning for a future free from the suffering that consumed his life. Scattered around his body, like fallen petals of a toxic flower, are the small, empty Philippon bottles. Their white surfaces gleam dully in the morning light. Tiny, silent witnesses to his long, agonizing struggle. They are not merely discarded objects, but relics of defeat, small monuments to the empire's fall and to his own. Each empty vial holds the ghost of a promise, a fleeting illusion of strength and purpose, now exposed as the insidious poison it truly was. Honor died with the empire, he had once whispered. The rest was just ash and white powder, a lingering trace of what once was, now returned to dust.